Welcome to another episode of What is Hashimoto's with Dr. Martin Rutherford. To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com. And now, here's Dr. Rutherford.
So I get a lot of questions, obviously, on so what causes Hashimoto's? And I don't feel like maybe I've put out a succinct enough explanation of this, just based on thinking back to some of the presentations I've made, and I wanted to do this to either update or clarify that question for people. Hashimoto's patients come into us, and back in the day, before we knew a whole lot about Hashimoto's and how to determine if the person even had it, the numbers were all over the place. Nobody knew what the ranges were. A lot of people still don't know what the ranges are. They're still all over I've talked to somebody in Alabama the other day where the range was 0 to 100. The Mayo Clinic is now agreeing that the range is 0 to 9. In my city, there's a hospital at 0 to 9. There's another hospital at 0 to 34, and there's another hospital at 0 to 24. So there was a lot of confusion on that, and those types of things made it really challenging. So we went a lot on symptoms, and one of the things we started to recognize was, if mom had a thyroid problem, and the grandma had a thyroid problem, and the sister had a thyroid problem, this person's probably got it. So we understood in the beginning that genetics was a big player. So, and then there's the genetics. So we used to do the HLA DQ testing, and we'd go, oh my God, you got the positive codes for it, you have it. And then now we know that that's not necessarily true. You can have the genetic code for it, not get it, and not have it. So you can be treating, and for a lot of people out there who are still going by the genetics, there's a lot of doctors out there who are treating people by the genetics for things that they don't have. There's things that they could have, but they don't have. So having said that, genetics are involved. You usually have to have one of the genes that say you can get Hashimoto's to get Hashimoto's. So this is why you'll see it in your family, and if you've got it, you'll see your sister's got it, or maybe your grandmother's got it, or your great-grandmother's got it, or your brother's, and usually that's a prerequisite. There used to be 2 genes that we talk about. I think it was the HLA B27. I forget what the other one was because it was so long ago. And why do I forget it? Because now there's 90 genes that are listed that indicate a vulnerability to Hashimoto's. 90. So that doesn't mean you should go out and get genetic testing, okay? It just means that if you really want to know the cause, there's been some sort of an evolutionary issue to where hypothyroids are turning into problems. And maybe these genes have been there forever, but we haven't been doing the things that turn it on. So the things that make us more vulnerable to and that contribute to the expression of these genes is smoking. You're gonna get a lot of these things, but the reality is these are the things that make you vulnerable to these 90 genes being able to turn on. Smoking, alcohol. Alcohol is one for sure. A lack of selenium. So a lot of you already know that with thyroid problems, in many cases, selenium helps to dampen inflammation, so it can bring the TSH under control. It's kind of Band-Aid-ish if you're not using it with a lot of other things, but it's a player in setting off the genes that cause Hashimoto's to not have enough of low vitamin D. Vitamin D has a lot to do with thyroid inflammation, and if it's too low, it allows the gene to express itself. Iodine for Hashimoto's is bad. Okay, I've done plenty of stuff on that. You can look that up, and it's but we're saying it can actually turn on the genes. Okay, so if you have Hashimoto's and you're kind of vulnerable and you're eating a lot of iodine, table salt, a lot of hard shell seafood, like crabs and lobsters and shrimp and stuff like that, this can actually set it off. I think another next one's not a big surprise, which is stress. Stress is like probably the number one that can set it off. And then infections can set it off. So you've heard of, of the person who says, oh, it's all Epstein-Barr virus. It's not. But Epstein-Barr virus is one of about 10 infections that we know of that can set it off. Epstein-Barr viruses, the herpes viruses, Lyme. The Lyme bacteria can set it off. Mold can set it off. H. pylori can set it off. There's a number of things that you can get that can trigger the gene to set this off. And the last one is drugs. And there's just a ton of drugs that can set off Hashimoto's. And we're kind of a drug-laden country right now. We're in the process of normalizing marijuana, which is kind of controversial. For my world, I'm looking for pristine balance in a world. I'm not like marijuana bad, but the reality is this is a drug, and it alters function and it alters physiology. When you alter physiology and you have the vulnerability of having the genetic code to be able to develop Hashimoto's, and there hasn't been a study on this yet. I'm just using this as an example. And it's probably a bad example because it's not the only drug. It's far from the only drug. But the point is, so many people come into my office, they're on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drugs. Some of them are bad for each other, and some of them are actually causing their problems. So I mean, it feels to me like the drug thing is a little bit out of control overall. So I was just using that as one example of one more step we're taking to take that many more drugs, because drugs is a big trigger. Taking medication that alters physiology, certainly, just logically, if you understand the physiology of the body, is going to make it vulnerable to expressing a gene. These genes are they're in your cells. They're in your cells, okay, and they're in the DNA of your cells. And then, if the cell is affected, if these drugs cause inflammation, if they cause a cell to alter, then there's this little transcription, what's called, where the signal's sent to the DNA, and the DNA gets shook up a little bit, and then if you got some genes that are vulnerable to going off, they're going to go off. Now, a lot of people do a lot of these things, which is probably why we have an explosion of autoimmunity. When I got into this, they estimated that there was maybe 5, 6, maybe 10 million people in the country that had autoimmunity. Now I've heard estimates up to 150 million people may have autoimmune conditions in this country, so I believe that this is really why. And it is interesting that the ratio of Hashimoto's is 10-1, females to men. My assumption is because females' physiology is continually more challenged than the male physiology. You're having periods every month, you have children, estrogen fluctuations are much more common. Male physiology is just way more common. It's just way more stable, and I suspect that's a big reason. After the genes turn on, so those are the things that will turn on that will turn on the genes. These are the things that if you have no Hashimoto's, no autoimmunity, but you have the genes to dead it, those are the things that will turn them on. Okay, and then once those things turn on, then that's where we come in. Now you're getting into dietary triggers, you're getting into gluten, you're getting into iodine, you're getting into all of the dietary triggers, the food sensitivities, the food allergies, the environmental allergies, you're getting into the toxins, you're getting into that. Again, this crosses over. Now the pathogens can be a big deal. The secondhand smoke becomes a problem. The grains, all the things, the diet, the lifestyle, I'm not sleeping too much, I'm over-exercising, my blood sugar's off the charts. All of these things now become the triggers of continually flaring up immune inflammatory responses after it's gone. Lifestyle, lifestyle and diet and pathogens and chemicals. So I don't know. Hopefully that clears things up. Obviously, we come in after the genes are already are already going. I mean, if the person's smoking and they're drinking and they're eating like crap and they're on a ton of drugs, there are things that some we can deal with, some we can't. I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't really help the person modulate their drugs. I can suggest that they talk to their medical doctor about it, and then that may or may not wash with that particular physician. But that's how it works. Okay, that is the what we know to date. That this is how you turn it on, and then once it's turned on, all the things that we do are about the after the genes are turned on triggers and getting those under control. The SIBO, the food sensitivities, the leaky gut, the no hydrochloric acid, and all that stuff comes into play once the genes are turned on. So I hope that's a little bit more clarifying for you on that subject.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of What is Hashimoto's? To find out more on any of our topics, or for information on scheduling a consultation with Dr. Rutherford, please visit us at whatishashimotos.com.